Sometime around 2029, I think a lot of people are going to have a very uncomfortable conversation with themselves about why they did not take this seriously sooner. I am not saying that to be smug. I am saying it because I almost had that conversation from the other side. I almost talked myself out of buying gold entirely in 2022, and the argument I almost believed is the same argument most people are still making today. I want to walk you through where I think this goes by 2030, the honest bull case, the honest bear case, and the one scenario sitting in the middle that nobody in this space talks about because it is not dramatic enough to build content around. That last one is the one I am actually positioned for, and it is the most important part of this video. I started buying gold for boring reasons. Inflation protection, basic diversification, nothing exotic. My wife thought it was a reasonable if slightly nerdy financial decision. That changed when I started spending weekend mornings reading central bank reserve data instead of doing literally anything else. She has a specific face for this. I have seen it a lot. But the further I got into the actual numbers, the harder it became to look away, and what started as boring insurance started looking like something considerably more structural. What I found in that data is what eventually pushed me to add to my position twice, and it connects directly to both sides of this argument. Here is the honest bear case, and I want to give it real respect because I think about it more than I talk about it publicly. If inflation gets durably under control and central banks actually stick the landing on a soft economy, gold loses a primary tailwind. A strong, sustained dollar environment historically pressures gold hard. If the geopolitical tensions driving safe haven buying ease meaningfully, if de-dollarization slows or stalls, the structural demand story weakens considerably. Pull institutional capital back into high-yield bonds and equities, and gold starts looking like the boring rock its critics always said it was. In that scenario, 2030 gold probably lands somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000. Not a disaster. But not a victory lap either. There are stretches where I look at my position and genuinely wonder if I am the person at the table who does not realize they are the person at the table. That feeling does not disappear just because the thesis has been working. But here is the problem with the bear case, and it is a structural one that took me a long time to fully appreciate. It requires a lot of things to go right simultaneously that have not historically gone right simultaneously. And the bull case requires almost none of that. Central banks bought over 1,000 tons of gold in both 2022 and 2023. China has been accumulating at a pace that makes the official numbers look like an undercount. These are not momentum traders reacting to a chart. These are decade-long strategic decisions by institutions that do not panic sell, do not check prices at 2 a.m., and do not reverse course because of a bad quarter. Add to that historic global debt levels, a consistent institutional preference for inflation over deflation, and a geopolitical realignment that is showing up in actual reserve data from actual governments right now. When I looked at all of that laid out together, I had the same reaction I imagine a lot of people have when the evidence finally lands. A kind of quiet oh. Like something clicking into place that you cannot unclick. In a genuine bull scenario, 2030 gold sits somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000. That sounds extreme until you look at what is already happening and follow it forward honestly. But neither of those endpoints is where I think this actually goes. And this is the part one promised at the start that most gold content never touches. The scenario I am positioned for is somewhere in the $4,000 to $6,000 range by 2030, with a path that is anything but straight. At some point in the next 5 years there will be a meaningful correction, probably tied to a temporary dollar strengthening or a surprise shift in Fed policy, that will feel genuinely awful if you are holding gold while other assets are running hard. I have already sat through smaller versions of that, and it tests you in ways that are difficult to describe until you are inside it. The people who bought for the wrong reasons will sell during that correction and feel vindicated for roughly 6 months. Then the structural drivers will reassert themselves and the move will resume. No dramatic moment. No single catalyst. Just a slow grinding, occasionally infuriating march higher driven by demand that does not respond to sentiment or headlines. It is the least cinematic version of being right. In my experience, it is also the most common one. The wild card that connects everything and could accelerate or derail the whole thing is the pace of institutional awareness. The moment that most investors, not just central banks but pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, everyday retail investors, fully internalize what the reserve data is already showing, the demand picture changes in a way that compresses timelines dramatically. That shift does not announce itself. It just shows up in the price one day and everyone acts like they saw it coming. 3 years ago, the people around me thought buying gold was a quirky and mildly paranoid hobby. Last month, 2 of them asked me how to get started. I did not say I told you so, but I thought it very loudly. Give me an actual number in the comments. Where do you think gold lands in 2030? And if you think the bear case is stronger than I am giving it credit for, make the argument, because I will actually read it, and I might make a video responding to the best ones.